is you need to know all the reasons if you're going to say that your reason is right and the best. And a lot of people, they say their reason's the best and they don't even know everyone else's reasons. So this is divisive. This is disconnection, and this is not good for you or anybody else. So, just say, look, the way I do it is I go, look, I don't always know the way everyone else sees it, but this is the best way that I know how to do it. And if someone comes to me with a better idea and a better way, I'm open to that. I'm willing to, and if that means all of a sudden I'm more left or I'm more right because I took on their idea, whatever, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I'm a best idea kind of guy. I'm a pro team humanity guy.
This is Way of the Artist with Brandon Colby Cook and Evan Schulte.
Identifying your blocks and demystifying your struggles
so that you can claim your own path
and make your life a work of art.
Well, everybody, we're getting into one today. I mean, I don't know exactly where it's going to go. I never know exactly where these are going to go, Brandon. But, this one for me, there was a sense of urgency to this one. And by the time everyone's listening to this, it's been, I don't know, probably about 3-4 weeks since we recorded this. But I think that this is a fairly relevant kind of territory that we're about to head into no matter what. So we've called this one, May I Have Your Undivided Connection. And those last two words kind of being, for me at least, key to what I really want to get into with this conversation, this relationship, or not necessarily a relationship, but just this subject matter of division and connection. And for anyone who's a regular listener of the show, you know that we're not particularly politically interested in talking about that kind of stuff on the show. We're still not. And I think we're not going to do that too much on this episode either. However, I did just want to acknowledge that, right now, as of February 10th of 2022, and for what's been going on for longer than that, there's been just intense division going on in, all corners of the world, but particularly where we are in Canada and North America and stuff like that. It's pretty shocking, like when things kind of went crazy in March of 2020, and there was this sense of togetherness and connection that we had to each other. And now it just seems like we are a million miles away from that. And my question has been the last couple of days, like, how do we come back together? How do we come back together despite disagreements? And because, disagreement is part of living and being with other people, being in relationship to other people. We're not going to always agree on things. And no matter what our opinions are, how do we come back together? How do we connect as human beings on a deeper, more fundamental level, perhaps? So that's my opening statements and remarks to this one. Brandon, what do you got?
I just have to say, talk to people, get off of social media in general. Social media in the, it's good in a certain way, right? The idea of being able to connect with other people is the point, but people don't use it to connect with other people. They actually use it to divide from other people. And I think we need to change our entire relationship to how we use social media. I think we need to reevaluate everything about it and consider looking at what the point of it all is, right? Like, and like if you look at like Facebook and the evolution of Facebook and how that even came to be, which is now going to be Meta, which nobody trusts, right? And they lost so much money because nobody trusts them, right? And there's a lot of people that like they get up in the morning, they get on Facebook, they spend their entire day on Facebook, pretty much, if not entirely, like indirectly throughout the day, they're always connected to it. And this stuff, right, it's not what it started out to be. What it started out to be was basically a way for people in college to meet each other, particularly people who were single, and to connect. And that was the idea. And it basically kind of let you know who was around, and you could kind of find a way to connect with them, and you could kind of see where they were at and what their status was. And that was the idea. And then eventually the entire world started to take on this form of social media. And there's other social medias that have come out of this or have come in connection to this. And I think, part of the problem is like social media is designed to connect you. It's not to disconnect you. And if you're finding yourself more and more disconnected to the world, you're using it wrong and it's using you. So as an artist, look, I don't really care what you do with your life. I think you're allowed to do anything. If you want to eat a bunch of terrible food and smoke and drink and do all this bad stuff for yourself, way too much to excess, and you want to destroy your life, that's your freedom. You can do that to yourself. You have that option. But if you're going to do it, I'm not going to judge you, but I'm going to, if I'm your friend, if I care about you, I'm going to say like, hey, maybe like check in, maybe stop, like for your own well-being, for the well-being of everyone else. And if you're really close to me, I might, like my mom used to smoke, she stopped. And I used to cry when I was a kid. I used to be like, don't smoke. I don't want you to smoke. I don't want you to die. And I could never get through to her. It was so hard. And the thing is like, sometimes people are going to do stuff you don't agree with. But if you're going to try to help them, do it out of love, do it out of connection. Don't do it out of judgment and like hate and like whatever, all this other stuff that people are doing, It's just no way to do life, and it's no way to do the world. And by the way, you'll never get through them. My mom did quit smoking. And, now whenever I talk to her about it, she goes, that was so stupid. That was so silly that I was ever doing that. But I think that she appreciates the fact that I really fought, and I don't think that I'm the one that necessarily stopped her, but I contributed to it. But I did it out of love, and I think this is the thing, right? It's like your undivided connection means like connect, not disconnect, and don't divide. And if you're dividing or you're disconnecting, you're doing it wrong. And that's my opening statement.
There's a lot in that opening statement, Brando. Yeah. And it's obviously this is a big part of it too. Like it's not just social media, like all of our media has, the potential to divide and to connect. And as well as like for the artist, like there's, it always has the ability to divide or to connect. I just finally watched that Netflix movie Mank. I don't know if you've watched that one yet, Brandon.
No, I haven't seen it.
No, it's David Fincher.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a David Fincher movie. Oh my God.
It's on my list, man.
I can't believe you haven't watched it. It's very interesting. It's very much like an old Hollywood movie. And now I feel like I don't want to necessarily talk about it, but it's based on a true story. And, it does, one aspect of it is it does dive into how, media has been used for a long time to essentially breed division. How to do that, how it has that power to do that. But ultimately, I think a great artist uses art to connect us on fundamental levels where we all come together at. You know what I mean? Like it's, there's, if you've ever read any sort of like work on Buddhism, there's a couple of things that I've noticed continually come up, and it's stuff that like often you're supposed to meditate on and think about and ponder, but and reflect. And it's based on a couple of different things. It's like reflect on how everybody has been born into this world, how everybody is going to die, everyone has to face that, how everyone wants to be happy, and how nobody wants to suffer. Right? Like that's, it's like, and those things are like uniting factors for all of us. You know, it's like that's, you can say that is true for every single human being. We connect. We all just want to be happy. We don't want to suffer, and we all have to face this thing called death. Like that's that, and those things in and of themselves, if we really consider them, this is, I think, the aim. If we really consider it, we really fully grasp it, there's a wellspring of compassion that comes through that understanding, that comes through that realization. And in many ways, I think that is so much of what like great art does, is it communicates things like that. It communicates that, you know, and other things too, like art can express any number of potential human universals, but ultimately, you know, like great art just makes us feel connected. It makes us feel connected to each other and to life. And yeah, it's so easy to fall into traps of divisiveness, you know, and I think that there's more of those. It's not that that's a new phenomenon in life. Our entire human history is riddled with horrifying details of divisiveness, of people who are divided. It's just that we have a whole range and suite of tools in which we can now express division with each other. And yeah, like social media is a very powerful one, where it has such an incredible ability to connect, but it also has an ability to tribalize too. Right? Which I think is what happens. Like, you know, we're connected to a certain group of people, and now we have this group of people that we can be divisive with against other people, and make other people right and make other people wrong, and things like that. And it's just like, and there's no end to that. That's the thing that I've really realized. And it doesn't mean that I don't fall prey to that, you know, within myself a lot, but it's, I don't know necessarily. I had a few areas that I was thinking of taking this into, but it's just, I think that it can be a very easy thing to just get divisive and down about other people. And sometimes it takes work. It takes a little bit of effort. It takes a little bit of putting our egos aside and putting what we think we know about other people aside, and really seeing each other, you know, going beyond our ideas that we have of another person. And I'll just cap this off and I'll hand it back over to you. But like, one of the things that I've always felt, and I'm just going to talk about sort of political spectrum in a very broad way here, but I've never had any sort of political affiliation, you know, and in the US, you've got two main parties. Here where we are in Canada, we have, you know, like 4 or 5 kind of main ones, but there's usually just like 2 that have anyhow, there's 2 or 3 that kind of, 2 or 3 that kind of run the show for the most part. But, you know, and some of them are, as we consider, on the left, you know, on the liberal side of things, and other people are on the right, which is on the conservative side of things. And one thing that has always baffled me and still baffles me to this day is when people hurl this stuff, you're just like, oh, they're a right wing, blah, blah, blah. And then, and this like was like, oh, there's some left wing, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I'm just like, do we not see just like the, like is, if we think of that in just a general actual like physical space location, like way where we think of left and right. Well, left and right are just, they're both useful pieces of direction. You know, like they're both like, it's they go hand in hand with each other, right? Like there's And to say that going left is better than going right doesn't make any sense, depending on where you're trying to go, right? Like you use whichever one is necessary. And for me, in terms of politically speaking, I go, well, hang on a second. Both the left and the right are advocates for very important human values. Each side is at its best, at its core, when it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, is fighting for important human values. And there's a balance that happens in between there. The left shows us kind of a responsibility that we have towards each other, that we can do things together that we can't do on our own. But on the same time, we go, okay, but we have to allow the individual to thrive. And when we allow the individual to thrive, that actually helps us all to thrive better too, right? And if you go too far one way or the other, it gets out of hand. Right? If you go too far to the left, there's no such thing as individual expression anymore. You know, there's we don't get different opinions. We become everyone just becomes a homogenous blob. But on the flip,
if you go too far right, that's actually the same too.
Too far right, it's the same thing too. And it maybe tends more to like a dog eat dog kind of attitude. Right? We're like, I don't fucking owe anybody anything, and no one's ever done anything for me ever. And that's shit too. It's both shit. So it's like, this is just something that has never made sense to me, where I'm just like, why this divisiveness when they're both contain with them really important values? And why is that so hard to recognize?
I don't think people are reminded or remember, or even sometimes are even aware in general about the values of why they do what they do or believe what they believe. I think they forget. I think what happens is you get on a team, you get accepted, and then you start to just like the fact that you're accepted, and you like these people agree with you, and you like, and you forget why you're doing anything. Like, why do you follow the speed limit? It actually takes most people a minute to think about why they actually follow the speed limit. Why do you follow the speed limit? Some people will say, well, because that's the rules. That's what you're supposed to do. Wrong. That's not why we follow the speed limit. Try again. That's not why we follow the speed limit. If that's why you follow the speed limit, then you haven't thought out why we have speed limits. We have speed limits for safety. Safety, because we care about each other and we want to protect each other. And what we're doing is we're trying to decide, okay, look, if you go roughly this speed on this type of road in this type of area, we agree as a whole that that's safe. So could you please stick to that? And when people abuse that, especially if they abuse it too much, then we say, okay, well, you need to be fined. You need a punishment for that, because basically what you're doing is you're being unsafe and you're putting other people at danger. And there's consequences for putting people at danger, because at the end of the day, we're trying to take care of each other, right? So
we're all trying to get somewhere, but there's a way in which we can do that, which is like provides the most amount of safety and whatever, like a balance. There's a balance that it strikes.
And it's a balance, right? And like, also like, well, you could say, well, safety is the only thing that matters. So then we get everyone to drive at 20 kilometers or 20 miles an hour. And everybody's like, oh my God, I'm like, this is horrible. I have a car that can go 200 miles an hour, and the max they'll let me drive is 20 miles an hour. It's just dreadful. But there's also another value we have, which is that we want to allow people to travel at pace. And we built roads because we want to be able to get to places with ease. Roads are there to get to places with ease. That's why they're there. We built roads and we designed things to make it, to give people freedom. And so we could create movement. And so we could create more out of that. Because what we found as a culture was that if we could move more stuff quicker, if we could move each other quicker, we could do more with the area that we controlled or inhabited, right? Now, most people have all these rules and all these beliefs and all these ideas, and they don't even know why they exist, and they don't know the moral or the ethic behind them. And like, as an artist, take it on, like as a critical thinking human being in the world, whether you're creative or not. I mean, just think a little bit, like put a little effort into what you do. You go, why do I do that? Like, why is this done? Well, my parents always did it. That's not a good reason. You need a better reason. You know what I mean? And I think like a lot of like undivided connection is about finding out better reasons, because if you think the way you do it is right and you think the way they do it is wrong, it's simply because you don't understand why they made sense of why they do it the way they do it. And if they don't understand you, they don't yet and are not yet enlightened on why you do it the way you do it. And if you're saying that your way is right, you better have a damn good reason as to why that is, like a really good reason. And not only that, if you are so arrogant as to say your way is right, you better understand what everyone else's reason is who doesn't do it your way, because you need to know all the reasons if you're going to say that your reason is right and the best. And a lot of people, they say their reason's the best and they don't even know everyone else's reasons. So this is divisive. This is disconnection, and this is not good for you or anybody else. So, just say, look, the way I do it is I go, look, I don't always know the way everyone else sees it, but this is the best way that I know how to do it. And if someone comes to me with a better idea and a better way, I'm open to that. I'm willing to, and if that means all of a sudden I'm more left or I'm more right because I took on their idea, whatever. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I'm a best idea kind of guy. I'm a pro team humanity guy. I'm not I'm not here to be right or to be arrogant. You know what I mean? And I think that if we all just kind of took on a model of like, hey guys, we're in this together, but a lot of people say they're in this together and they say, hey, we're doing this together. And they're not in it together. Give me a fucking break. You're not in it together because you're saying your way's right and their way's wrong. And you don't even understand why they're doing it their way. And the only reason why you're saying they're wrong is because someone told you this is why they're doing it. But go talk to them. Go ask them. Go figure out why they have that stance. And maybe you can express to them why you have your stance. And if you guys don't judge each other, you can actually have a real conversation. And that's what connection is. And if you really truly have the better way and you are open to hearing their way, usually people will be won over. They will be won over if you tell them your way and it actually is better. And if you are open-minded, if they have a better way, you will be won over. Maybe you're just scared to be won over, And it's only stopping you, and it's only stopping your connection. It's only hurting everyone else when you do that. So, it's just, I think it's about people to stop just being so arrogant to say we know so much. We don't know very much at all. And very rarely do we have everyone else's opinion and have we gathered all the information to be able to make really good decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's so interesting, what you were saying about, like we put these things in these boxes, right? Where it's just like, oh, well, that's a left-wing idea or that's a right-wing idea or whatever. And it's just like, well, who gives a shit? Like what, like, can we just judge something based on the idea that's presenting and whether maybe it's a good idea for the problem that we are currently facing, right? Because the thing is that like in some instances, it won't be a right solution. It won't be the right solution, right? But we're always, we talked about this recently, but like, we're always trying to have these things fixed in place. We're always trying to fix what is unfixable, right? Keep it in some place. And it's just like, life has changed, man. Everything's changing. There's nothing solid.
There's very little that is. There's very little that'll stay the same. And for how long it'll stay the same, I mean, maybe some things over a given enough time will always change.
Yeah. So like, let's stay open and let's listen to each other and let's try and find some sense of understanding. And look, that can be challenging, because we've all been conditioned, in one direction or another, and usually in multiple directions all at once. Right. And it can be tough because we get so wrapped up in these things that we think, in these things that we believe, and how we think things work. And it is challenging when somebody comes along and upsets that, you know, or challenges that or questions that. I get that. You know, I think that's something that we all struggle with, but I think that we can do a hell of a lot better than we're doing now. You know, and just being like, okay, you know what? Maybe there's something that I haven't considered. Guaranteed there's something that you haven't considered. But let's start hearing each other and acting in good faith towards one another. You know, like, it's just, there's all sorts of associations that that I've been seeing going on out there where someone has a difference of opinion about something and they raise their voice about it. They're speaking out. And because of that, they're suddenly being hit with all kinds of labels. You know, oh, well, because you think that, you're a this and you're a that and you're like just slanderous, smearing shit, when it's like most of that is untrue. Probably none of it's true about a lot of these people, but it's just, you know, it can be again, it can be so easy to be divisive, right? It can be so easy to just make somebody into some boogeyman, right? Well, like, as long as you're this in my head, as long as you're a misogynist, as long as you're a racist, as long as you're a bigot, as long as you're a this thing and that I've called you that you are, whether that's even true about you or not, as long as you're that, I don't have to listen to anything that you have to say. I don't have to challenge my views. I don't have to challenge or consider you a human being. And I think that is what has been so troubling to me, is this dehumanization. You know, this mass dehumanization of each other. That's just like, what is that going to create? What is that going to breed? All it's breeding is more hostility and more distrust, and just everybody's becoming more and more entrenched in their beliefs and thoughts and stuff like that. And it's just like, and you know what? Maybe this isn't really as big of a problem as I think it is, Brandon. Maybe this is just a media problem. It's not a people problem, which I am inclined to think that there's probably a very strong element of that going on. I like to think that most human beings are decent, reasonable human beings. But I think that we all have moments in which we slide into this sort of divisive mindset. Yeah.
Well, you know, get two people to sit down and have a beer together and you have a conversation. And you know what? There's something great about the tradition of this podcast, which we have a beer together and we sit down, we have a conversation. And yeah, it's easy for us because we're like good friends and we maybe agree on certain things and have certain similar values. But you can sit down with really anybody, have a beer, have a tea, have a coffee, have whatever, have a meal, and just chat and share ideas and don't judge each other. You know what I mean? And it might open your mind and you might go, oh, okay, I see how they see it this way. You know, what's really interesting, right, is like, aside from politics, when you succeed at something, it's really, really interesting how people are so curious about everything about you. They don't understand any of it. And they go, well, how'd you do this? And how'd you do that? And can I pick your brain about this? Can I pick your brain about that? Oh yeah, you love that because you want it. But when someone is doing something that you don't understand, but you don't agree with it for whatever various reason, probably because the media told you not to, sit down, talk with them and hear them out. Why do they see it the way they see it? And if they're interested, maybe you can tell them why you see it the way you see it. I think what the problem is like social media it has two problems. It has two core fundamental problems in my observation, which, you know, is limited. But from my perspective, what I see for the most part is it has two problems. One is that you're not getting face to face with people. And most of the time you're talking over text and messenger, and you're on group threads where you can have people like and agree, and you can bully people, right? And that's a problem in and of itself. Have a one-on-one conversation. You need one-on-one conversations, right? And then if you guys can talk in an agreeable way, and one of you can talk with someone else in an agreeable way, maybe you can have an extra person come into the conversation. But don't do this group, tribe bullshit, right? Get away from that. Just stop using your social media threads. And I know most of you that hear this aren't going to do that, but like, it's for your own betterment. It's for your own health. And I'm telling you one thing, once I stopped looking at my main social media thread, my life improved dramatically. I have private messages with people, and if I can't answer it over a private message or it's not getting resolved, I call them and I hear their voice. And if that isn't enough, I try to see them in person. And this, so that's one problem. One problem is that we're disconnected in the very medium in which we're communicating, and we're accepting that as that it's okay, right? And text messages included in that. Text message is a very limited version of connection. The other thing is that part of the thread on your media, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, like you got to understand, you're getting sold all the time. Understand this one basic principle. If you get anything for free, you're paying for it for some other thing. There's some other way you're paying for it. With social media, what you're paying them with is your attention. And what you're giving them attention to is their ads and the narrative things that they're pushing through your feed. So that's where they're making their money. That's where they're getting their ability, right? So stop using that, because once you start using that, you start shutting down their ability to essentially just put ideas in your head. Because a lot of what people think isn't what they think, it's what they've been told to think. And I like to think that these conversations, we're not even telling you what to think, we're telling you to consider thinking differently. Just challenge the idea in the way that you're thinking. Like I don't even know, you might be on track, and maybe you are on track, and okay, if you're on track and it's working for you and it's creating success and happiness and joy and less suffering in your life, then by all means keep doing it. But here's another thing. If it's creating suffering and pain and hurt in other people's lives, then stop doing it. Even if it is creating joy and pleasure in your life. Do you want to be an asshole? Do you want to be somebody that's out there hurting other people? Because a lot of people are. But you're not thinking about that, are you? You're thinking about yourself. And I've said this on the podcast many, many times, and I'll say it again. We're selfish beings. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a part of human nature. But the thing is your happiness and your joy, if it's hurting other people, you need to seriously consider if that's worth getting joy and happiness out of it, because you might just be a bully. You might just be somebody that's actually causing a problem in the world for other people, hurting their lives. And just because you're happy and you feel like everyone in your little circle agrees with you and is happy with you, it doesn't mean that you're good. It doesn't mean that you're a good person. It doesn't mean you're doing good things. But look, we have a balance, right? Like the speeding thing. It's your responsibility to make sure you're happy and joyful and that you don't suffer. But it's also your responsibility to be mindful not to cause hurt and suffer to other people. But you don't have to give up all of yours to satisfy them. And also you don't get to just care about yourself and not care about anybody else, because there will be consequences, right? So, but no one should have to tell you how to do that. You got to learn how to guide yourself internally. Like if you're just following rules on what people tell you to do, the bully might be telling you, yeah, like push that kid. And so you go push that kid to please the bully, but you're now part of the bully team. You're part of the bully tribe, right? So just stop and consider and ask why. Why am I doing this? Why do I see it that way? And you better come up with a really good reason. Otherwise, I think the answer is going, okay, I don't know. I don't know which way is the best way here. And that's okay. Most things, 99% of stuff in life, you don't know, and that's okay. It's the people who are arrogant are the people who think they know everything. The people who are humble and mindful and often the most successful, they know what they don't know. It's the people who are arrogant bullies, they don't know what they don't know.
Hey everybody, this is Evan, and this episode is brought to you by my book. Yes, I recently released a book called The Actor's Awakening, Connecting Spirituality to Craft. Expand yourself as an actor and your craft through a spiritual perspective. Take a journey that will explore universal philosophies and insights to help you understand human nature in a profound way, and develop practices to take your work to another level. Again, that's The Actor's Awakening, Connecting Spirituality to Craft. Available on Kindle and paperback on Amazon. And as always, if you like the show, please subscribe.
Yeah. You bring up a lot of good stuff there, Brando.
Yeah, I had
as
something
usual. As usual.
Well, can I say one thing, Evan?
Yeah, of course.
Look, I just I don't want that to come off as like some kind of opinionated rant, because it was a rant and it is somewhat opinionated. But like, look, my value at the end of the day is this: be good to yourself and be good to other people. I dated a girl and she used to teach kindergarten. She taught me this rule that she taught her kids, and I thought it was such a great rule for life. It's don't break my stuff, don't hurt yourself, and don't hurt anyone else. And that's basically a good rule for life. Don't break anyone else's stuff. You can break your own stuff. It's your stuff. Go ahead and break it. If you bought it, you can go ahead and break it. But don't break anyone else's stuff. Don't hurt yourself. We don't want you to hurt yourself. You can hurt yourself, and a lot of time no one can stop you from hurting yourself. But try not to hurt yourself. Like we don't want you to hurt yourself, okay? Like we're trying to look out for you. We're trying to protect you, like everybody here, right? And when people are in pain, they sometimes hurt themselves. So we're trying to protect from that, right? The other thing is don't hurt anyone else. And if you don't hurt anyone else, like you're doing your own thing, you stay in your own lane, we can all get along pretty well by those three basic, very simple foundational rules. And if you're doing any of those things, if you're hurting yourself, you're hurting anyone else, or you're breaking anyone else's stuff, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. You can certainly do it a hell of a lot better.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, like I remember when you first mentioned that, and I was just like, that's great. Like, that's so simple, and there's so much to it, you know, because like don't break, you know, everyone's stuff, don't break other people's stuff, and don't hurt others is like, you know, just a good basics in terms of like how to conduct yourself in relationship to other people. And don't hurt yourself is kind of like, that's in some ways a very interesting one, because it's like you can expand on that to a level where it's just like, whoa, like, well, what does that all mean to not hurt yourself? You know, like obviously, like when you're talking to young kids, like it's like, yeah, we're talking kind of like in a very, you know, simple, like physically don't hurt yourself, you know, don't do anything to hurt yourself, because that makes everybody sad, and it's upsetting, and you know, and there's other ways, and it's like we want to help you kind of a thing. But, you know, don't hurt yourself, I think, can take on such a broader context, and like all of these ways in which we do hurt ourselves, right? And I think that divisiveness is certainly one of them. You know, divisiveness is one of the ways in which we absolutely hurt ourselves. You know, it can feel really good in the moment. You know, like it can really feel good to get in there in that us versus them kind of attitude for a little while. But like it's, you know, it's what's the expression for it? Like it's basically like, it's like an appetite that can never be satiated, right? Like you can feel it, but like you're hungry again. You know, it's like division is like empty calories. You know, there's no real nutrition in it. You just been filling yourself with junk and more junk. And it just like, it's a temporary satisfaction, but you always kind of need to get your next hit out of it, right? Because you've got to make somebody else wrong in order for you to be right all the time. And I think that that's part of the spiral, you know, like just this downward spiral that comes out of division, is that like there's no end to it. You know, there's no end to it unless you consciously you become conscious of it and you choose to act differently. And we choose to act differently, to recognize when we're participating in this game that has no winners. Ultimately, I feel like everybody's just ultimately a loser in that whole game. It feels like there's wins that happen, but it's just like, again, it's like it's gone so quickly. You know, you scored that 1 point on that Twitter comment, and tomorrow you'll be right back at it.
Yeah.
You know, you'll forget all about the victory you got yesterday, and now you've got to get another one again. To be right. Trying to be right, I think, is a poison. I honestly think it's a poison.
Well, in the way that you're talking about it being done, it is a poison. I mean, there is a good side of being right, where it's like let's try to come to, you know, the right answer about this. Let's try and figure out the solution on finite things. When you're working together to come to the right answer, it's a good thing. But when you're trying to basically like destroy somebody to come to the right answer, I mean, yeah, it is a poison. I think the thing that, and this is a Western culture problem in a big way, is that we've been kind of taught to hate our enemy. And, you know, I'm going to throw out a crazy thought here. And a lot of people are going, what? Love your enemy. What does that mean? Well, look, if your enemy, your opponent, your adversary, like, love them, because their adversity that they're creating for you is actually building you. And if you like someone, like if your life was a movie and we had to cast your movie, somebody has to play the asshole in your life. You know, somebody has to play that role. Some actor has to take that on. And I hope they do a great job of it. Right. And, you know, as a filmmaker or a storyteller, you know, a screenwriter, we would celebrate that actor. We would celebrate them for doing such a good job of being the antagonist and the enemy. Right. But like, you as a person in the play, in the screenplay, in the movie, or whatever it is, like, someone in life is going to disagree with you, or someone's going to cause you challenge, and you can look at them and you could hate them, which doesn't do you much good, or you could look at them and be thankful for them being there, because they're teaching you something about life and they're teaching you something about yourself. And by the way, when you start to love your enemy, you just live a happier life. You know, you don't live with hate and all this other crap that just is poison in your body. And, you know, I do actually have learned, I like debating, because I found that I'm quite good at it. But like, I like debating because it's fun to have someone really challenge, like someone who's not just falling into fallacies and basically trying to, like, you know, do kind of like what are essentially considered in philosophy like very ignorant arguments, you know, like where they're just essentially trying to bulldoze their way through without answering questions. And like, that's no fun, because that person is basically, they're not playing. They're not, it's like you're trying to box with someone and they're kicking, you know, and you're like, come on, like, this isn't the sport. You're not supposed to kick. We just punch, right? But it's like when someone's playing soccer and they're all of a sudden they're using their hands and they're like, you know, not getting fouled for it. It's like, no, the game doesn't work this way, right? It only works if you play by the rules. And the rules of actual debate and argument are basically making statements and essentially putting forward a premise or an idea and backing it up, and then asking questions that expose the logic or faulty logic behind the other person's argument. And through that, if you do this well, it's not usually that one person is entirely wrong and one person is entirely right. It's usually this person's right around these things and this person's right around those things. And then together, we actually all together, and all of those that viewed the debate and even the people who are part of the debate, we all come away with a better understanding from the debate of what the right answer is, which neither of us actually fully had until we had the debate. That should be the point. But people come in with the position that I'm all right and you're all wrong, and I'm going to show you that. And it's like, no, man, you're not. Like, you know, the thing is like none of us, if you had all the information, you would have everything you ever wanted in life. You would basically be able to decide how everything goes. You would be the master of everyone, and you're not. And if you think that you're right about everything, you're pretty fucking arrogant. I mean, it's kind of almost hilarious, right? For those people who walk around thinking, "Oh, I have all the right answers." It's just like it's crazy. It's like absolutely, it's insanity, right? But my point is that like life is learning, and you're probably right about a few things. You're probably wrong about a few things, and you know, and there's probably some things you have no idea even exist, and you have no knowledge about. And you'll learn if you have actual debates to be a little more aware and a little more correct about some things. And then you'll open up some avenues and some veins or some wells that you had no idea existed. And you realize that you're totally ignorant to those, and you'll learn some things and you'll get some information and you'll know a little bit more, and that will open up some more things. And the process continues the rest of your life. And that's just how it goes.
Mm-hmm. I watched this documentary yesterday, and it's been one that it's kind of an odd one that I've been meaning to watch for a while, but it's called Raising Kratos. And it was a documentary about basically like the most recent God of War game that came out, I think, back in 2018. Because I've been a fan of the series and was a huge fan of like this sort of reboot that they did. And so it was this documentary on the whole process of creating that and everything that they went through to do it. And there was the actor who played Kratos in this game. I think his name is Christopher Judge. He was in like Stargate SG-1 all those years on TV and stuff like that. But he was talking about it, and he said, you know, my mom taught me that every person you meet knows about something more than you. There's something that they're more of an expert in than you are. So listen to everybody with openness. Like he had a way of it. It's like, so like pay attention, because there's something for you to learn from every single person that you ever meet. So pay attention. And I thought, like, that's just fucking beautiful advice, man. Like, what great parental advice to like receive. Like, if you just go about in your life like with this attitude that like every person you meet knows something about something more than you. And it's up to you to find out what that is. You know, what is it that they know about?
I like that a lot. That's really beautiful. I mean, that like what better way to connect with people than to see them as somebody who carries something with them that could help you on your journey, you know. And even the people you don't necessarily like or don't necessarily agree with, like, you know, or maybe you're not even all that interested in them, like, you know, but if you looked at everyone as somebody who is a fellow traveler that could potentially give you something very helpful on your journey, you know, you might be a little more open-minded and a little more, give them a little bit more, you know, appreciation and respect. And I mean, I get it. Time is valuable. Like, you don't have to give everybody like all your attention and time. I mean, you can only give so much, but like, you know, try to, like, I think there's a good rule that, you know, if people followed this rule, I mean, there's these little rules that I like, these little kind of moral, ethical rules, and I like to live by them. It's like, do your best to try to make sure everybody you encounter is better off for knowing you. You know, that's a pretty good life. If you're somebody that everybody who encounters is better off, and even if they don't like you, you know, after their interaction with you, that's not your responsibility. You're not going to be able to control that. But if you genuinely tried to contribute or help, right? And whether they took your help or contribution or not, try to do that, right? And you can be pretty proud of yourself as you move on through life. And not only that, you'll build a lot of really good, strong relationships with people. I mean, I have people who reach out to me sometimes who are like, Brandon, I was thinking about you, and when you did this, and I was like, holy shit, really? Like, I totally forgot about that, but like that mattered to them. That was a big thing in their life, right? And it's really just a matter of like, trying to make people's lives better by interacting with them. And look, I haven't been perfect. I've probably made some people upset with me, and I've probably done some things that probably haven't helped people. But like a lot of these things, they're we're not perfect, and you got to give yourself a little bit of a break as a human being. And even if you've made mistakes, and you got to say like, hey, look, maybe I did the wrong thing here, but I've learned, and I'm going to be better the next time, and I'm not going to do it again. And some, this whole rule, like I was talking about with the kindergarten teacher, she was saying, don't break my stuff, don't hurt yourself, don't hurt anyone else. So what happens if you break someone else's stuff? What's interesting is what you do. What's interesting about you as a character is what you do after that happens. Do you replace it? Do you repair it? Do you make up for it, or do you let it go? Do you pretend it didn't happen? Like, what kind of person are you? That says a lot about you. If you hurt yourself and you hurt yourself, do you beat yourself up about it, or do you forgive yourself? Do you give yourself a break? What do you do? And if you hurt somebody else, what do you do? Your character is a response to one of those three things. And that's basically who you are. And if you want to pretend you're a good person and you're going around hurting people and not correcting it, and you're breaking people's stuff and you're not fixing it, and you're hurting yourself and you're not acknowledging it, you're really kind of a bad character in a movie right now. You're not playing a good character. You're the bad guy. Sorry, hate to break it to you, but you are. But if you're the person that goes around and fixes stuff and apologizes and makes up for the hurt you caused and actually tries to repair any hurt you caused yourself, you're a hero, man. Or lady, or whoever, you're a hero. You're out there and you're doing something real wonderful, because it takes a lot of character to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you don't always know when I'm going to stop because I go on these rants.
Well, it's that's part of the fun of the podcast. Sometimes it's just like, oh, all right, he's stopped. What do I have to say? What do I have to say in response to that, and vice versa?
Awesome.
Yeah. It's like, it's interesting. I a few sort of like quotes have went through my head here in these last few minutes, and one was, I think we shared in the last podcast, that has really been sort of resounding through my mind for the last number of weeks. But it was a good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving.
I love that one.
And then the other one that I was just thinking of, and I can't remember who said it, but it was, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. I think it's just, like because I have faith in us as human beings. And I also know we have a ceiling, a fairly low ceiling for how long we can be angry for how long we can be hostile for.
It takes a lot of energy.
It takes so much energy. Like, that was like, a few years ago, like, like, I'll never forget this. Like, it was such an interesting, eye-opening experience. But when we did the Mastery, which, for people who don't know, it's like, the Mastery is a program that you can find in, pretty much all over the world, really. And it was created for actors, but I think it's actually created for people, but they made it. Oh, was it?
Well, I think that's how it went. Yeah,
I thought it was the opposite way.
Oh, it might have been the opposite.
It was for actors, and then they've kind of made it for people as well, because I think there's always a performance element, no matter what, that goes with it. Like, even if you're not an actor, you have to perform a monologue or something like that. But I remember there was this exercise where it was like, we had to really think of somebody who we had such anger and resentment towards. And we like wrote like a letter or something like that. Did we write a letter? Yeah, we wrote these letters ahead of time of what we would say to these people. And then we kind of ended up throwing the letters out. And it was just like, and we had to just let them have it. You know, we had to just spill out all of our anger, all of our hostility in front of a group of people. And we had like the time, like there was a time limit to it. Like we had to go for like 3 minutes. And I remember everybody in like about 1 minute, everyone was exhausted. You know, like it's just like anger is just such an exhausting energy to keep with you. So that's like, in some ways, that's like a weird gift that has been built into us, where it's like, we can't stay here for a long time because it actually becomes insufferable.
Yeah.
At a certain point, we're just like, this is eating me alive. You know, anger will eat you alive. Hatred will eat you alive. Until you eventually have to make peace with something. You know, you got to make some peace. You got to find some compassion. You got to forgive. You've got to, you know, realize like this is madness. Like this is absolute madness to live in this way, and to be like, is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? Is to carry this around with me all the time, you know? Like sometimes like most of us can justify our anger towards somebody or something. And most of us will come up with a lot of really good reasons. A lot of reasons that people would be like, yeah, for sure, I get it. Yeah, I would be pissed too. I'd be mad too. Yeah. Those people don't have to hang on to it. You're the one who's hanging on to it.
Yeah.
You know, and hanging on to it and hanging on to it. And it's just like how good are those reasons really? Ultimately, when this thing is just like sapping your life, you know, and is making you a person that you actually deep down, you have no interest in being that person. You know, like it's really, it's quite a simple thing, but it's so hard to do at the same time.
I think it's one of those conversations that could go down its own. It could be a whole conversation, right? About anger and trying to deal with that. I mean, people have been trying to deal with that forever. I would just say like, look, I've been really angry in my life and I've been really hurt. And I've had people do things that, you know, I'm sure if I told you the story, you would hate them, but I don't hate them. But based on the contents of the events and the things that they did and the things that happened, you would probably say that's a terrible person. And look, what I learned through being angry about that and being hurt by that was that I've changed from those events. And I mean, I don't wish them upon anybody, but the fact that I experienced them and I lived them has made me a different person. It's evolved me and I've changed. And I've experienced betrayal and I've experienced things like that, which is, to me, betrayal is the most brutal of all things to experience. I mean, maybe someone disagrees, but to me, betrayal is so hard because usually betrayal, I mean, really only time it comes is from someone you love and care about and trust. And when that's broken, it's so devastating because you usually, if it's a big betrayal, you usually leaned on them or usually trusted them in a big way. And once that's gone, it's like the floor from under you has gone and you just don't even know where you stand anymore. It's a weird and horrible feeling. And sometimes it's very hard to understand why people would do it, especially if you thought of them in one way and now all of a sudden you've seen them in another. The hard lessons of life, all I can say is like, use them in your art. I think that's why art is so important. Use them in your creative expression. Learn how to, you know, have an expression for them, you know, learn to put them out, have some way of dealing with this, you know, and And honestly, I would give anybody advice who might be feeling angry or hurt, like maybe your anger, like just always consider that your anger, the amount of anger you have is actually quite, like, as much as you've justified it, it's not good for you. And your best thing is to try to get rid of it. And so if that means like talking to a therapist or expressing it through your art or figuring out a way to reframe it or work with it, is a good thing to do. Granted, at the same time, if you're feeling angry, I don't think you should numb it either. I don't think you should do things to try to distract yourself from it. Part of what's going to help you through the feeling is actually feeling the feeling. But just, you can feel as much anger as you want, but be mindful of the action you take in anger. You know, just like anger is usually a very terrible guide for action, but it's a very necessary feeling in the human experience. So like, there might be people out there in the world you feel very divided from and you hate them right now, but understand that the anger you have is not theirs and not even really towards them. It's inside of you. And in fact, what you ultimately find is that all feeling is actually just a projection of your own internal world. And the reason why it controls you, I know I'm dropping some deep shit here, but like the reason why it controls you is because you haven't healed your own internal world. Because once you heal your internal world, people who do things that would normally make you angry don't make you so angry anymore. You have an understanding of them. And when you can see yourself, and I know this is one of the hardest steps in the world, but like when you can see yourself in the attacker, in the abuser, in the betrayer, in the people who have done the bad thing, when you can see how they did it, why it made sense for them, it actually releases a lot of the fear that anger carries with it. And people often don't realize, you know, a little pseudopsychology here, that most and pretty much all anger is propped up by fear. And, you know, it feels, you don't feel like you're scared when you're angry, but anger is to cover the fear. So if you're angry and you can kind of get down to the fear and you can remove the fear, the anger actually usually goes away as well. One last thing, Evan, I used to hang on to my anger for a long time because my belief was that if I let it go, I couldn't protect myself anymore. And that was the fear. So say you were attacked or betrayed or something like that happened to you, right? Like it's very natural you would hang on to your anger because it's actually you protecting yourself because you're scared it'll happen again. But if you can work past the fear and see that you don't need to be scared of that anymore because you've changed, evolved, and worked past that, the anger just is not necessary.
Yeah. No, that's, I totally hear that. I was just thinking of, just to pull up another quote here, and I had to pull it up because I'm like, I need to get this one accurately. This was one I came across a little while ago from Thomas Merton. Instead of hating the people you think are war makers, hate the appetites and disorder in your own soul, which are the causes of war. If you love peace, then hate injustice, hate tyranny, hate greed, but hate these things in yourself, not in another.
Oh, I mean, doesn't that just sum it up, right? These wisdoms, right? They're not like, I call them wisdoms because they're not mine. I'm just a conduit to wise things that people have passed along throughout history, right? Like, and we may reword them and speak about them in a different way, but people have had to learn these lessons forever. And, you know, that quote is just a very succinct and wonderful way to express it, right? Is that, you know, the war maker that we hate is the war maker in us, right? And like, you can't, like, I think what people get stuck on though is they want to change behavior of other people. And you really got to understand that you don't change anything until you change and help and heal yourself. It's like, if you don't make your bed, if you don't clean your room, how are you going to clean up the world? You know what I mean? Like, you don't even clean your room. You know what I mean? Like, and you're going to clean up the world. Like, give me a break. You know what I mean? Yeah. It starts with you, and you make, and you find out by cleaning your room. Here's like a little lesson, and people, like just listen really carefully. When you meticulously clean your room or your washroom and you get every little corner and every little grimy inch, and you get right down in on your hands and knees and you figure it out and you make it absolutely pristine. And most people have never done this. But if you go and do that, then you're going to start to understand the amount of detail and care it takes to get the world to get cleaned up. Then you're going to start to understand. If you have to do it on a regular basis, then you understand that it's not a one-time fix, that we're living in this world and we continually make a mess and we continually hurt each other and we continually break each other's stuff and hurt ourselves. And we're continually taking care of that. So your room and your own bed and your life, it's all an expression, a microcosm of a bigger thing. And if you're not taking care of the little things, you have no chance of taking care of the bigger things,
Yeah.
It's really pretty simple. I mean, the outside world isn't going to fix your internal one. The internal world of you is the expression of your external experience.
Yeah. Well, shall we do a quick beer break here, sir?
Yes, indeed, Evan. Let's do it.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead first. I'm drinking the Trail Hopper IPA from Stanley Park Brewing. It's great. What can I say? What can I say? Like, I've got most of my taste back now. It's not 100%, but I feel like I'm operating at about like 85% taste capacity now. And yeah. Good stuff. I've had it before, so I knew it wasn't going to be anything offensive to the senses.
I'm having one that I think you've had before. I don't know if I've had it though.
Oh, okay.
It's from Medicine Hat Brewing Company, and it's the MH Brew Co. is the short term for it, but it's called the Creamsicle, and it's it really does taste like a creamsicle. Like, when you have like orange on ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could only get it in a 6-pack. So I've had a few before we did this podcast, like over the week. And so I've been kind of developing an acquired taste for it. I've liked it more the more that I've had it over the week. It's pretty good. I mean, it's a very it feels like a treat. Like it feels like a dessert. It's not necessarily the beer that I would go for, but if you want to have an experience of a creamsicle beer and you want to have kind of a sweet, kind of tasty treat for a beer, then this is definitely the winner. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Unique is the word I would probably describe it as. But hey, you know what? That's what I'm having today, and that's my story.
Nice. I can say that I have never had that before. I can't say that I've had any beers out of Medicine Hat.
I thought you had this one once. I thought for sure you did.
No, I feel like I would remember that. So, no, I think that's a first. That's a way of the artist first.
All right.
Well, let's close this one off. Let's put a little bow on this one. I'll kick things off. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have any sort of like key takeaway from this conversation that we've had. I just really wanted to open up this dialogue. I feel like in some ways I needed to just exercise these feelings in a certain way of just this, my own disillusionment to a certain degree with the amount of divisiveness that I feel like I've been seeing, which, with what we were saying here at the end, it's just like, oh, I should probably look at the divisiveness that's within myself a little bit more closely then, because, if I'm seeing it a lot out there, it's probably a lot going on in me. And I think that for me, this is maybe has acted as a reminder that I have work to do, on my own end, that it's not about everyone else needs to stop being so divisive. And I just be like, well, what are ways in which I am acting divisively? What are the ways in which I am not, or in which I can be better at connecting with people, and trying to foster those healthy disagreements and conversations. And, what am I doing that? Am I being as open as I could be to other people? Am I approaching strangers as well as friends and other people who maybe I see this behavior with? That am I saying like they have something to show me, they have something to teach me, I just need to pay attention because they know something that I don't, right? Am I adopting that attitude? So I think that's, for me, I'm going to spend some time just with a gut check on that one. Because like anything, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So I think that's, this conversation, in addition to just being an opportunity to vent some of this stuff, is also, I'm seeing is an opportunity for me to check in with some of my own perspectives and my own behaviors and seeing how I can do better.
I would say do that, but also don't be too hard on yourself, because it's a sales job. Divisiveness is a sales job. Someone has to sell you on being divisive, and sometimes it's you. But if you're not selling yourself on being divisive, someone's selling you on it. And I would say that you need to look at that and reevaluate the sales job that's being done. I mean, I don't know, Evan. I mean, I'm not going to say I disagree with you, because I agree with what you're saying. I think you should look at yourself. I think it's an important part of the process, but I also don't find you to be somebody that's selling yourself on being divisive. I actually find you to be one of the most inclusive people I've ever met. So I'm sure you have your demons and your internal things that you're working through, and just, you get provoked like anybody else. But at the same time, I mean, I think everybody needs to remember, like, look, everything is sales. We're being sold all the time, and you're being sold that you have an enemy. And I'm telling you, I mean, I'd like to say that I'm the voice of reason here, but you don't. You actually don't have an enemy, and you're making your life way more dramatic than it actually is. You're being sold that you have an enemy, and you really don't. And, you're being sold on what to be scared of, and you don't need to be scared of it. And you're being sold on not going for the things you love and care about. And you shouldn't be buying that shit. Because when you don't go for your dreams, someone else makes money off your back. And that's how this world works. So if you want to be used, then keep buying the sales job, And if you want to start being somebody that actually controls and directs their life and doesn't get manipulated and twisted and turned by the sales job of people basically manipulating you, because let's just be frank, there's a lot of people out there who don't care how you feel, and they don't care about being good people, and they're willing to make money off of anything, and they don't have morals or ethics or whatever. And you got to stop listening to those types of people, and you got to start listening to people that care about your interest, care about your well-being, care about your health. And you need to start listening most of all to yourself. And any voice that is convincing you to be divisive of other people, to hate other people, to fear other people, to fear other things, that's not a good voice to listen to. Hands down, across the board, pretty much always. Even if someone's bad news, you don't need to hate them. You really don't. And it doesn't help you. Focus on what you care about. Focus on what matters. Stay in your own lane. Don't worry about everybody else. And let people look at you like a model of expression that can be replicated. Don't buy into following the crowd. If you're following someone else who's not doing their life in a really good way, like somebody who's divisive, if you're following somebody who's divisive or propagating fear, then don't follow that person. Stop following that person. That's not a good person to follow. Like, and there's someone on the other end of this podcast, I know it, who's going to hear this and they're going to go, yeah, fuck that. And I'm speaking to you and all the other people that are saying, oh, you don't really know. I don't like you. You'll hear me another day. But the person who's going, yeah, fuck that. Yeah, fuck that, man. Fuck that. You listen to you. Stop listening to these fear mongering pieces of shit. You know, listen to you. You're an artist. You're creative. You're a human being. You have love and connection in you. And you know what? You go out there and you connect with a friend and you call a friend and you say, hey, you know what? Thanks a lot for being in my life. Call a family member. Say you love them. You start doing that stuff. Start being that in the world and stop letting these people, you know, tell you to fight your neighbor. Your neighbor is your friend, man. Your neighbors are your team. We're all in this together. And even if some people aren't pulling together, we're all in this together. And if some people aren't pulling with you, you don't need to hate them, because maybe, just maybe, they're pulling you in a direction that you maybe need to go in, but you just don't see it yet. Maybe not. Open your mind, open your heart, you know, listen to yourself. And when you open your mind, you open your heart, I think you're going to have a much clearer voice come through you and tell you what to do.
Thank you for listening in on our conversation today. We hope you found something helpful that you can carry forward with you. Head over to our website, wayoftheartist.com, for more free exclusive material and learn about the show. If you haven't already, please support us by subscribing to the show, sharing it with people you know, and keeping compassionate, creative conversation going.